kids, great to see you, and thanks for watching. I'm quite embarrassed how nice all my old patients are to me after all these years, because I was often quite grumpy, especially to do with house calls. In my defence, it was a tough life in those days. We'd often be on call the night before, we'd have a difficult surgery, we were on call as well for Stallington Hospital, if any of you remember that, and also a female prison. And life was tough, and you come to the end of a surgery and then you got a list of people requesting house calls. And very often, these people, it wasn't there was a medical emergency or something serious going on. They were often very lonely people, and they'd rather have the company of a grumpy young doctor rather than nobody at all. I remember one lady, a call just like this. That was the complete scenario. I said, okay, I'll come and see you. Be undressed and in bed with a urine sample ready in case I need to test your urine. She said, no, I won't do that, doctor. I said, what? Why not? She said, well, last time I was waiting for 3 weeks for you to come. Oh, so I had to take my lumps on that. At that time, by the way, we inherited a couple of private patients. And in my very early days, I was summoned to see one of the local gentry in a local manor house outside of town. And I went into this place and I said, would you mind, she was on the wrong side of the bed, I said, would you mind coming to the right side of the bed? She looked at me rather conscious and said, pray, why? I said, well, in medical school we're taught to examine from the right, then we do it the same every time and we make a very accurate examination. She looked at me with total disdain and said, well, it's never been deemed necessary before. So I made my diagnosis of mumps, gave her the advice. It obviously wasn't satisfactory, as she sent for the senior doctor to give her a better opinion later on that day. We had another private patient, it was just the two. And this lady, every few weeks, we had to go and give her an injection of sterile water. Don't ask me why, I don't know why it happened, but we'd take a vial of sterile water and inject this lady every 3 weeks or so. And then one day my partner, Shoshi, who was the most wonderful partner, those of you who know him will know what I'm talking about, the most wonderful partner I could possibly have. He could put up with me. He was so gentle and wonderful. He said to me, oh, bloody my God, he'd forgotten the vial of sterile water. And rather than trek all the way back to the surgery, that 5 miles, for a vial of sterile water, he'd taken water from the kettle and injected her. And after a few months of injecting from the kettle, we realised that there was no difference at all. Did it work? You bet it worked. Because when that lady wanted to go to the hospital, she insisted on having a kettle to take with her. And then she could have this magic injection. Of course, we not only had house calls during the day when we were working, but we had house calls out of hours and during weekends when we were on call. Boy, how I remember one pea super on a bank holiday. It was so bad, and this was a call in Lee. Not only that, it was on the other end of Lee. Some of you will remember those pea super fogs. And I promise you, I had to hang out of the car to watch the curb to get there. It took me about an hour to get there to see this 90-odd-year-old lady who was in cardiac failure. And I gave her the injections and I waited and she improved. But I thought, this lady's going to die. Not only that, but she's going to die tonight. The prospect of driving back all that way home and then coming again later on in the night to certify death, which we had to do in those days, I confess I was tempted to leave the death certificate there and then to save me all that journey. Which is well I didn't, because she actually, as you probably guessed, lived another 2 years after that. But we often had difficult encounters out of hours. I remember a lady, you try to lead a normal life. So one day I was playing squash and there was a lady where she was expected to die. Everything was organised. She was going to have a peaceful death at home. And I went in my squash gear. I interrupted a squash gear to go and see them. The home help was there. As I charged through the door, said, shh, shh, shh. doctor. And what had happened is her husband had got out of bed to go to the toilet, and I had to wait until he got back into bed with her and then sneak in and certify death, because they didn't want to trouble him. Let him get a good night's sleep and they can deal with his wife's death in the morning. So I had to sneak in my squash gear on all fours, certify death, and sneak out again and do the certificate and then leave. Please don't tell the GMC about these things. But whenever I've had dealings with home helps, they've been just wonderful, redolent of compassion and common sense, which nowadays are, of course, totally illegal. We also got a lot of night calls in those days, and these were not very welcome because you'd still have to do a full day's work the next day, you know. And I remember one night call, 4 o'clock in the morning, an old guy, he's out of breath on the phone, and I know what's wrong. The guy hasn't been taking his pills, he hasn't been taking his water pills for his heart failure, and he's filling up with water. And after a few futile conversations with him, I thought, oh God, I'll go and see him. So I went and saw him, give him the injection of a diuretic, you know, get rid of the water. And then I read the riot act to him and told him he must always take the bloody tablets and not drag me out of bed at 4 o'clock in the morning. I said, okay, do you understand me? Yes, doctor. And this won't happen again, will it? No, doctor. Any questions? Yes, doctor. What's that? Would you play me a tune on the piano while you're here? I said, you dragged me out of bed at 4 o'clock in the morning because you haven't been taking your tablets properly. I've got to be working the next day. What would you like? So anyway, I remember what I played. I remember very vividly. I played, Oh, I Do Like to Be Beside the Seaside and Land of Hope and Glory. And he stood to attention while I sung Land of Hope and Glory as I drove off into the early dawn. What the neighbours thought, I've just no idea. And again, please don't tell the GMC. And I remember one Boxing Day, I was called out to see this guy, and it was a silly call, really. It wasn't necessary, and I was really bad-tempered and grumpy, and I go in on my high horse and I examine him and I do the necessary. Now, it so happened that at that time I'd been reading about the First World War and the horrors that those poor buggers went through. And I happened to notice his age. I said, were you in the First World War, by the way? Oh, yeah, I was in the First World War. I'm thinking, oh, yeah. What were you, an ice cream man or something? And I've been reading about the German snipers. And I said, and I was just amazed at how clever they were. I said, did you have an experience of the German snipers? He said, oh, yes, I did. Because one nearly killed me. It cut through my tunic here, and I know it passed in front of me because it killed my best mate who was standing there. I said, what? Really? Were you at the Somme, by the way? Oh, yes, I was at the Somme. Really? Oh, the Somme was nice. We had proper trenches at the Somme. What? At Wipers, we didn't have trenches. We were just in. And then the guy began to tell me about his experiences. And I dissolved from being this arrogant young doctor to recognising I was not fit to lick the guy's boots. He was just wonderful. And I hope we became friends later on. He was certainly friendly towards me, and I didn't deserve it, and I just adulated him. In fact, I found 2 other World War I veterans, and I took the 3 of them out to the Queen's in Freehay, and I bought them, all 3 of them, a meal. And it was a real privilege listening to them. They were such a superior breed of people, just wonderful, wonderful people. They shared notes about the different regiments and where they'd been, and they all said the same. There were people who did a lot more than we did. They were the most wonderful people. And as often happened with all my experiences with you, with house calls, and with everything, I often went out feeling arrogant and in a bad mood, and came back chastened and a lot wiser. Thanks for listening.